My message today is a result of this day and the Best Year Yet series. Talking today about, going forward. So Kelly and I, knowing that this year was coming, months ago, we started praying about the theme. So Best Year Yet was what the Lord put in our heart. We started working on what that would mean for us as a church. Then secondly, beginning to pray about stepping into another decade. And Bob Goff has taught us, and it is very helpful. If you want to really prepare for your future, then have a conversation with the 10-year older version of you. Think about the testimony you want then, the influence you desire to have then, and then have that person speak back into the person you are today about the value system, the decisions you're making, and you can move toward hitting the desired target. So we started doing that. So for me, I was holding a conversation with the 63-year-old version of me, which just takes a lot of prayer right there. Just can't even wrap my mind around that. Kelly's been talking to the 38-year-old version of her. And together, here's what we're believing God for. That 10 years from now, this is our audacious goal. That 10 years from now, we can say in the last 10 years, God has done more in and through our lives than the last 30 combined. We've been married 30 years, in ministry 30 years, and so we're believing. We're believing at that level. And when it comes to ministry, if this was, a race, when it comes to great, healthy years to run fast for God, we're in those years. And I'm going to do this with everything I have. And I need, with the kind of dreams that are in my heart, I need the next 10 to be as fruitful as the last 30. What is your audacious goal? For us to believe that will happen, we're sinking our heart into Genesis 26:12. Here's what it says. Then Isaac sowed in that land, and he reaped in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. So if the next 10 will be equal to that of the last 30, then every year we have to be producing at 100-fold. And only God can make that happen. Now we have to give ourselves to God in a certain way. This will not just happen. This will mean waking up every day with a set of core values that create a precision of focus and a lifestyle that God can bless at the level of 100-fold. Best year yet is simply that. It has to be, because the vision is so big. This being a good year will not produce the result. It has to be the best year yet. So just opening up my heart of big vision to you, and then I want to transfer that and show you how we're getting about this every day. What I'm about to tell you, it's how we've parented, it's how we pastor, because you don't lead by what you say. You can't reproduce what you say. You're only going to reproduce who you are. So it's not enough to have a bunch of talking points. It's only going to work if you've got a deeply embedded value system. And so I want to show you ours, and you transfer it to you. I pray this is a pastoral word, and I think at the end, it's going to bring us to a very powerful experience together. Here's the first word. If this is going to be the best year yet, if the next 10 will equal or be greater than the last 30 combined, it starts with honor. Two things, honor God. And then for Kelly and I, we're going to honor each other. Honor God, honor each other. Key relationships. If you're not married, it's those next most important relationships in your life. God responds to honor. But it starts with honoring God. And I don't want to pass over that and just say that's to be expected. You would think any Christian or pastor would say that's the starting place. But I want you to know it's an action word. It is a word to confront if there's any drift spiritually. If for any reason I'm losing the fiery zeal of God that it takes to really honor God. God didn't die, rise again, save me from my wretchedness and sin so that I would be mediocre in my devotion to him. He deserves better. And so I framed everything around Romans 12, 1 and 2. I want to give him my everyday life, my eating, sleeping, going to work, my everyday life in such a way that it expresses he's number one, he's everything. I'm passionate for his presence. I'm fully devoted. I'm not just easing in. I am all in my passion for God. And I can say, Lord, I live to honor you. Then to honor my marriage. Because no marriage is great without intentionality. To be very intentional, to have a great vision, to set an example for all of those watching us, that marriage is something you're not stuck in, that marriage doesn't have to be a grind, that marriage, the more and longer people are married, the more you wonder if they're really still all about it. But that it's better today than it was the day we got married. That it's going to be better tomorrow, and it's going to be better 10 years from now. And if that's going to happen, we got to wake up every day to put into action, honoring, cherishing, loving, respecting each other. Don't just talk about it, do it. Don't just say words, live it out. Honor God, honor each other, best year yet, 100-fold. Now there's a flow. If there's honor going from our hearts to God, to each other, now we're prepared to lead well. Leadership is influence. We want to be leaders worth following. Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. This is where we honor the call, passionate to do what God has called us to do. To know that God has set a high standard for his leaders. And we step into that and say, it is an honor to live up to that standard, to model leadership that's worthy of people following. Let me keep building because they go together. Excellence. If it's worth doing well. Excellence of spirit. Excellence in everything that we do. Good is always the enemy of best. We live in a culture that is so mediocre that if you're good, you can be viewed as great. But in your own heart, you will know that you're settling. And it's easy to settle. It's our nature to settle. To say, isn't this enough? Isn't this good enough? Haven't we done enough? And just settle for good church and good facilities and good worship and good preaching. And we're going to fall into the trap of letting good be the enemy of best. We didn't show up today for just good. We showed up for the best experience in the most awesome presence of the one and only, our awesome God. So the best worship, the best preaching. I didn't show up today and say, another weekend I have to preach again. Man, these things just roll around so fast. Feel like a sermonator. Just out of one sermon and got to hash out another set of points, blah, blah, blah. Super Bowls, I'm more, and just kind of like, no. I'm like, get the weekend here. I got to get this word that God's put in me to you. I'm living to open my heart to deliver this fiery word that God is embedded in my soul. So I pursue God in prayer, pursue God in study, keep reaching for that hard to find illustration that will just finish off an application of a point in the best way. Never settle to just sit behind, head down, having to read out of notes because I'm not prepared to stand here and say, I'm like a bomb about to go off. Let the lion out of the cage. I'm ready to go. I've got the word, because you deserve the best and he deserves the best. It's a high calling. It's a high calling. So we're going to do it well. We're going to push hard. We're going to push ourselves because excellence demands it. Next is positive attitude. Nobody can do great things with a negative spirit. If you have great expectations and a negative attitude, you're working against yourself. You're getting in your own way. Being emotionally healthy, having a winning attitude, a winning spirit. You know, to make great progress, you've got to have a lot of optimism. Because to make changes, standing in this worship atmosphere today, remembering what it took to get this environment, remembering what it took to get this to a place where it is happening and working. It was painful. It was difficult. And at times, there were a lot of questions, but the optimism says, God's leading. God's leading. Stay focused. Stay with it. Keep pursuing. Keep at it. Traction started coming. And then the growth started happening. It takes huge optimism to move something forward. So there's no way to have an empire of vision being built in your heart to then articulate that vision and think that it will happen if the attitude is negative. See what I'm saying? Now, what I'm telling you, Lindsay could verify this. This is just the way we have lived. I sent all these to all of them. Second day of our 21 days of prayer, I just shot a text to everybody and said, hey, I'm praying these over us, praying these over me, waking up again to live these out. Because it's not have a positive attitude, it's be positive. It's not pointing saying be excellent. No, just do excellence. Do honor. Live it out. Positive attitude hands off to generosity. I call it a spirit of generosity. My whole ministry, I always knew if this connection gets made, it will create an unstoppable force. And there are times I pastored and I knew. I would even say to Kelly, we've got to confront the scarcity. Scarcity mentality says, look at the limitations. Here are the reasons why we can't do quite that much, why we can't push quite that far, why we can't build that building, do that ministry. And we can do good things, but we don't have what it takes to go there. That's scarcity. That's looking at what we have and who we are. A spirit of generosity is looking at who God is. Spirit of generosity, and get this, it's not about looking at the facts, it's about faith in what God can do with our facts. It's about the sack lunch that up against 20,000 will not meet the need, but when God blesses it, it will not only meet the need, there'll be 12 baskets left over. A spirit of generosity says, I'm not going to look at what I have as an assessment. I'm going to look at what I have as an offering. Myself, my education, my past, my history, my story, my money, it's all God's. I'm going to offer it, let you put a blessing on it, and use it however you choose. I'm not going to put limits on it. I'm just going to offer it. Romans 12 says, I wake up every day to make myself an offering. And that's not my wallet. That's included. That's all that I am. And then I find it's always been true. Little is much when God's in it. If you take all the collective wisdom, talent, time, and money in this room up against the need of the world, it's very small in comparison to the need. But let God bless a church that honors Him and honors each other, that leads well, that's excellent, with a great spirit. And let a spirit of generosity break out saying, we'll give you who we are. We will give you what we have. The Spirit of God will bless it. And here's what it's called. Heavens get opened over a family, over a person, over a church with that attitude. And you stand in amazement of how things got done, and you had no clue how you were going to get there. But God. But God. When you're generous, you write yourself into the story. So many of you were willing to give toward the new kids building. You wrote yourself into the story of now the hundreds of people that come to this church. And that was an incredible tool to house the ministry, to have the space it would take to do ministry to the numbers of people that are attending now. You wrote yourself into that story. That's what I love about generosity. That's why when it comes time to serve at Night to Shine, serve at Joyride, show up, be a greeter, a teacher, work with our children's ministry weekly. When it comes time to give, when these plates pass, it's not have to, it's get to. Because we're writing ourselves into the story of the kingdom advance. When you stand before God, you're not saying, if I'd had more, I'd have done. No, you're going, I did everything I could with what you gave me, and you blessed it and made it so much more. Find any great church and they'll tell you they didn't get to where they are by what they had. They got to where they are by putting faith in God to bless what they had to make it more than what they had. Come on, somebody. Get this in your heart. This is how you got to live. I've raised our kids. Don't ever think small. Don't ever be stingy. Don't ever be ungrateful. Release gratitude out of a spirit of generosity and watch what God will do in your life. Love it. Now, when you're generous, you generate. You generate ways to express your generosity. And you become what I call moment makers. Kelly and I have tried to parent this way and pastor this way. And just kind of see the flow. When you're generous, you generate ideas. And so then you can create moments. Moment makers are people that understand how the memory works. The science of memory says if I can create a peak moment, it'll embed a memory that's very influential in your life. Here's the way it works. If you would take this square as a season of life that may be challenging, but you can create a peak moment in the middle of a challenging season that embeds a great memory, then out in the future, when this person recalls the season, the peak moment will skew their memory, and they won't think as much about all this stuff that was going on that was hard. They'll think about the peak moment. Let that get in your heart. That's the way we've tried to parent, is invest in moments, create moments, because life will see to it that there will be challenges that go way longer than we ever thought they would. But as time unfolds and you look back, what you're attached to are peak moments. I'm going to illustrate how we've approached this. There are analytics about this. It's so many good things about it. If you've ever flown on Southwest, they're the one airline that they try to have some creativity and humor when they're getting you ready to take off. So like one guy said, hey, there are 50 ways to leave your lover, 5 ways to get off this plane. I'm going to tell you where they are and how to find them. They have analytics on the influence on revenue because they do it a little differently. This one couple had just gotten married, and so the flight attendant said, we're going to do a wedding gift, just spur of the moment. Said, look, this couple just got married. We want to give them a gift. If you would be willing to write down just a good word to them about their future and encouragement, and hit the call light, and we're going to give you this Southwest napkin, and we're going to then compile all these, and we're going to make it a gift to them as they get off the plane. They had over 55 words of encouragement because someone just you think that couple's going to fly Southwest again? See, they impact revenue by creating moments. Now, Night to Shine is all about a series of moments. From the time our guests arrive, red carpet to every room, it's a series of peak moments to embed in the memory of this year 800 plus guests, and I want them to live out of the joy of that memory day after day after day. I met a lady today, Jordan brought a friend, and she is coming to Night to Shine this year. Be our first year, and I'm glad. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. And the reason we ask you to serve is because we need help to make the moment. When God finds a church that is so generous that you think this way, then he gets involved and he starts connecting through his sovereignty these moments that are miraculous. When I write a kids program like with the ship that we built, let me tell you how that came about. We were doing Surge last summer, and they would lead the kids in a pirate dance. And it was fun, and I watched. I go, when this song comes on, these kids connect. They love it. So God just put in my heart, build a whole story. Build a ship. Make it amazing. Close the curtain, build a 30-foot ship, and I'm standing right out here. When that curtain opened, and I've got it on video, and I'm keeping it for the rest of my life, you hear people go, wow. One person goes, oh my God. Like they're like, man, what do? Peak moment. But then we took a hard to communicate principle of spiritual warfare, and we talked about how God fights our battles. And then after the event was over, I got these videos of these kids in their homes, and they're singing back the songs. They're acting out what they saw. Because what we did is we created a peak moment. Joyride, we used Toy Story, brought out Jessie, and we had foster children here. And what we did was create a lot of energy and excitement. Then we went to the challenging side of being loved and having identity. And I was standing right over here when that scene was going, and I watched face after face. I'm like, there it is. There's the moment. We just embedded the memory right then. And so now I have pictures that I've received since then. And we gave every girl the Jessie doll, every guy the Woody doll. There's this one little boy. And the note from mom says, he has Woody on his pillow every night. So I get a picture. He's sound asleep, and there's Woody right beside him. We embedded a memory. 2 boys, actual brothers. They had to be placed in the foster care system. They normally don't split up, blood brothers, but the circumstances, they couldn't find a place. They ended up being split up. They hadn't seen each other in over a year. And at Joyride, when we had distributed the bicycles, and the families came around the corner to leave, and this is the way God sets up moments. Because this is the way it works. You create an event where moments can happen. These 2 brothers saw each other. And the big brother looked at his little brother, hugged him, and said, how are you doing? It's the first time they'd seen each other in over a year. And so God gave them that memory. And I don't know how he'll use it over time, but here's what I know. It happened in church. And I think all of that gets connected in the sovereignty of God. We're not just living days. We're not just rolling in here routine. Every time we open these doors, the lobby is an opportunity for moments. The hallway is an opportunity for moments. The service, the worship, the preaching, the praying. Every day is an opportunity. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be very simple. I watch my kids try to do this now, and they have to do it at their level. At our level, we can express it differently. At this church, we're doing an $80,000 night called Night to Shine, not charging a dime. Why do we do that? Because we're generous. That's a spirit of generosity. And I'm telling you, God will bless back beyond anything we could think or imagine. Let's make some moments. Come on, let's do that for people. It's how we do this. Let me hurry on. This is just the way we live every day, waking up to create moments. Figure it out. It can be on your way, taking your kids to school. It can be on vacations. That's a prime time to create a moment. It can be when you watch God. I'll tell you what I do in mentoring people that I see God using in ministry. I watch God use them, and I go and impact the moment by looking at them and saying, lock eyes with me. God just used you. And you realize you have a gift, and that gift is above average. And the way God has made you, your personality, your gift, the way you can express that gift, that's God. And look at the influence that just happened. And you embed in it. See that when a young person knows God just used me, peak moment. Now fix it in their heart with a word of acknowledgement and affirmation, so that in the future, when the voice of intimidation or insecurity would like to take them out, that memory will rise and say, God gave you a gift. God has fashioned you for this. God has anointed you for this. Now go on, release the gift again. Come on, let's make moments. Next one. We're going to invest in the next generation. That's how we're living. 100-fold return means we've got to invest. Bella, would you stand up for a second? This young lady is amazing. This is Bella. She sits with us during church. She always has her Bible. She has her notebook where she takes notes. And now she started coming and sitting with us for the 9 o'clock and the 10:45. I watch her in both settings, hands lifted, just worshiping Jesus, dialed in the worship, dialed in the message. Hear me, hear me. Don't ever entertain one negative word about the next generation. That's the next generation, and it couldn't be better. It couldn't be better. I love you. I'm proud of you. Investing in the next generation. We're rolling out an app that will be accessible by every phone to fight the biggest giant fighting against our young people today. For 30 years, I've had a dream of bringing online a leadership development, like an efficient, effective leadership development. That's going to be happening in the fall. Between now and then, Kelly and I have carved out time, and we're investing in people like Bella and right on up through teenagers, young adults, and just turning them loose. Here's what I believe about this generation. They're living in the darkest of times. So this is their opportunity to see revival, to see the most dramatic power of God in the history of the world. And I believe it with all my heart. If you believe it, come on, put some passion in that. We're all about the next generation. It's why we built the building. It's why we've got so much investment to make. We're going to be rolling out a lot of vision this year. God's going to use it. We must come to a close. Let me give you this next one, and the worship team will join me. The only way to produce at 100-fold is that every year has to be the best year, so we have to love like we've never been hurt. I borrowed that phrase. I love it. It rings true with me. It's the title of Jensen Franklin's newest book. And so it is part of our mantra. Because the longer you live, the more opportunities you have to hang up over past hurt. Hurt is inevitable. Bitterness is an option. Into every life will come pain. And that pain can be resulting in your life to a negative spirit, a smaller vision, an apprehension about everybody around you, about God, about the future. Or you can let pain become the price you're willing to pay for greater influence. Because probably the pain we've gone through is going to help people more than the successes. because we're able to testify of a God who will meet you in the darkest hour. Regardless of your story, of how you were raised, all those things could make us different. But what makes us the same? We've all weathered intense trial and storm. And so we can connect around the times that we didn't know what we were going to do and how we're going to make it. My entire sermon next week is going to be that right there. How to love like you've never been hurt. And it frames up like this. You will be hurt. Life will see to it. In life, there's pain. Here's the option, to love like you've never been hurt. And the way that works is if you are able to experience God as you experience the pain, then you're working that out with you and the Lord and very important people that He'll put around your life so that you're processing the pain and the past hurt while you're loving like you've never been hurt. My oldest nephew, who's now the lead pastor of an incredible church, he played college football, and I called him as his team was going into the playoffs, and I said, I'm so sorry you're not going to get to play next week because he had an injury. He said, oh, I'm playing. I said, but you're hurt. He said, Uncle Ron, he said, everybody on the team is hurt this time of year. He said, everybody's playing hurt. He said, we're going to play hurt. And man, that went off in me. How in life, there are times you just get hurt. And you got to be willing to do life hurt. Doesn't mean you're always going to be that way. But it means, I have preached through pain. You've gone to work through pain. You've worshiped through tears. You've kept loving Jesus when you had more questions than answers. You've woken up and gone, God, I don't know what I'm going to do about this. But God's faithful. Always. And He never fails. And here we are, still at it. So you can love. You talk about the freedom and power. I can't produce at 100-fold if I've got unresolved issues from the past, because it'll slow me down. It'll create confusion when I need clarity. It'll create apprehension when I need to be expressing faith. It'll rob my optimism when I'm going to need it to say, God's with us and we're going to do it. Let's go. So that's next week. Final one is one I want you to join me in. And it's this: God will fight for you. God will fight for you. We'll explain that, but would you stand with me, everyone? And on this 10-year anniversary, we want to read the word over us as a church. So would you step out and come as close as you can? It would mean so much if you would honor this request. And we got to come as close and spread out far so we get as many people in. I know we're going to use some of the aisle space, but don't stop if there's space in front of you, okay? Just come as close as you can. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lord. That's it. Just come on. If there's a little bit of space in front of you, we need it. We're going to be very close-knit family here. God will fight for you. So every day that I wake up, every day that Kelly and I start a new day, this is part of what's in our spirit. That way, when we come up against a challenge, because you never know what a day holds, you got, God is the God of the battle. And in 30 years, there's a lot of battles, and you get to wake up and say, the God who will. The God who gave us the victory will give us the victory. So I want you to hear these words. Anytime I talk vision, I've got to go back to the book of Joshua. I did it from the first sermon I preached 30 years ago. I want you to hear this with the emphasis on how God fights for us.
Joshua 24, verse 3. This is what God, the God of Israel, says. A long time ago, your ancestors, Terah and his sons Abraham and Nahor, lived to the east of the river Euphrates. They worshipped other gods. I took your ancestor Abraham from the far side of the river. I led him all over the land of Canaan and multiplied his descendants. I gave him Isaac. Then I gave Isaac Jacob and Esau. I let Esau have the mountains of Seir as home, but Jacob and his sons ended up in Egypt. So I sent Moses and Aaron. I hit Egypt hard with plagues and then led you out of there. I brought your ancestors out of Egypt. You came to the sea, the Egyptians in hot pursuit with chariots and cavalry, to the very edge of the Red Sea. Then they cried out for help to God. He put a cloud between you and the Egyptians and then let the sea loose on them. It drowned them. You watched the whole thing with your own eyes, what I did to Egypt. And then you lived in the wilderness for a long time. I brought you to the country of the Amorites who lived east of the Jordan, and they fought you, but I fought for you, and you took their land. I destroyed them for you. Then Balak, son of Zippor, made his appearance. He was the king of Moab. He got ready to fight Israel by sending for Balaam, son of Beor, to come and curse you, but I wouldn't listen to Balaam. He ended up blessing you over and over and over. I saved you from him. You then crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho. The Jericho leaders ganged up on you, as well as the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hivites, and Jebusites, but I turned them over to you. I sent the hornet ahead of you. How cool is that? God named his display that day like a superhero, or let's give this a movie title. How about the hornet? I love this version. Oh my goodness. I sent the hornet ahead of you. It drove out the two Amorite kings, did your work for you. You didn't have to do a thing, not so much as raise a finger. I handed you a land for which you did not work, towns you did not build. And here you are now living in them and eating from vineyards and olive groves you did not plant. So now, fear God. Worship him in total commitment. Get rid of the gods your ancestors worshipped on the far side of the river and in Egypt. You worship God. If you decide that it's a bad thing to worship God, then choose a God you'd rather serve and do it today. Choose one of the gods your ancestors worshipped from the country beyond the river, or one of the gods of the Amorites on whose land you're now living. As for me and my family, we'll worship God.
So the book of Joshua, it's 7 years right after the wilderness wanderings, before the confusion of the judges. The book of Joshua, 7 years. 7 pagan kings, barbaric armies, and they defeated every evil king. They won every battle. 7 straight years of total success. They took possession of 25,000 square miles of land. And when you come to the end of the book, I want to put it on the screen for you. 1 man of you shall chase 1,000, for the Lord your God, read it with me, is he
Fights for you.
Now, next passage, look at this. So the Lord, this is how the book ends, gave to Israel all the land of which he'd sworn to give to their fathers. And they took possession of it and dwelt in it. The Lord gave them rest all around, according to all that he had sworn to their fathers. And not a man of all their enemies stood against them. The Lord delivered all their enemies into their hand. Not a word failed of any good thing which the Lord had spoken to the house of Israel. All came to pass. Over the assembly, the Lord will defeat all of our enemies. The Lord will lead you by his presence, by his power. You're anchored by a promise. Give him praise today. God will move us. God will take us. God will keep us. I've seen him do it before, and I believe he's going to do it again. Come on, give him a shout of praise, and let's sing it today.
And I believe
Sing it, everybody.
I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way. And I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains. And I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way. And I believe I'll
Yes.
see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains. And I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there is no way. And I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains. And I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way. And I believe I'll see you do it again.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I just have some leadings that I want to give. The first one is for those of you who hear a message like this, but you feel stuck, disappointed, you have a lot of regret, so much that it's hard to attach yourself to a hope-filled future. I've got a word for you today. 40 years Israel spent in the wilderness. They could have said, we've been here too long. We can't go forward. But they did, because they finally just yielded to God. I'm not asking you to have all the answers for all your questions. I'm just saying, yield to God, yield the disappointment, yield the regret, yield the past and all that goes with it, and say, Lord, you lead me, I'll go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go forward in Jesus' name. Second, I feel this. I think this is a word to parents. As we lead our kids, we're always trying to fix the potholes. That's just that everyday grind. Hey, be more responsible. Clean your room. Do your homework. All that's good stuff. But don't get so consumed fixing the potholes that you take your eye off of the opportunity to create peak moments. Create those peak moments. Be aware of them. Seize the day. And watch what that will mean in the life of your kids. God is going to help you. So I just feel like there's some families here and you just kind of been grinding it out, bouncing off of each other. The Lord's just saying today, create some moments. Recognize the good. Find the bright spot. Celebrate the bright spot. Be grateful. Lord, I believe healing can be turned loose. If there are parents who didn't have anyone to do that for them and they find it difficult, God, we're made new in you. You'll empower us to do what we didn't receive ourselves. Seed that in our hearts right now, Lord. Change things. And especially for those who feel like it's gone on too long and it'll never change. Do that, Lord. Do that, Lord. Amen. Final thing, everybody looking this way. Bob Goff, his dad has never looked at him and said, I love you. Now you think about that. The most inspirational leader I've ever known, the most loving person I've ever known is Bob Goff. And he's never heard the words, I love you, from his father. When he told me that, he said, Ron, I made a decision a long time ago. I get to define how this is going to affect me. The definition can be, I have a small heart and I'm bitter and I'm broken. or I go a whole different way. So isn't it interesting that the guy who wrote Love Does, that's exploded in the world, is the guy who's never heard his own dad say, I love you? He got to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, had a satellite phone, called his dad. Wanted to see if dad would say, that's awesome, son, I'm so proud of you. His dad said, oh, it's you, Bob. Hung up the phone. So I'm without excuse. I get to look to God to shape, to create the way I'm going to define whatever's back there. And here's the way I've decided. I'm going to love like I've never been hurt. You with me? Come on. That'll change you. Wow. Lord, I pray, whatever that means to the people in this room, that they would receive it and realize they don't have to be defined by what happened. They can choose the definition, and it can turn out to make them just the opposite of the negative. We see it in the Word of God, and we see it in people like Bob Goff. Lord, you'll empower us to be transformed and to use the story of the past to motivate us to good works, to help people. Thank you for the assembly. Thank you for these people, oh God. You've written them on our heart. We journey together, and we're going to see in this year 100-fold return. And we thank you for it. Best year yet. And everybody said, amen. Have a great afternoon. I love you. Tell somebody you love them before you leave today.